All right. Hi, Lori. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, Katie. It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. I'm so excited to have this conversation today. I think you're a perfect guest for the audience of this podcast. So, if you could just give us a little background on you, kind of where you're from, what you do, what
Mhm.
brought you to the work that you do, and maybe give a little explanation of the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for doing what you're doing by hosting this podcast because there's so many women going through these transitions in middle life. And, I found myself in one of those. So, I'm Lori Tybon. Hi, it's nice to talk to everyone today. I was spent 20 years in the corporate world. I have three children. I went through a period of time where I was very highly successful in my corporate job and in my 30s and early 40s, and started to have a family around that same time and just got completely overwhelmed and burnt out, and was high achieving but found myself not enjoying as many things as I wanted to enjoy in life. And I really struggled with having my kids at that younger age and feeling like, oh my gosh, so much pressure all the time. Everyone was demanding on me and my family, and I just felt like I was being demanded upon as opposed to really living and enjoying life. Subsequently, I also, at the same time, was having became ill slowly and slowly. I had a then undiagnosed illness. It's an autoimmune illness that got worse and worse. And as the pressure of work and the kids and the family and everything escalated, it came to a head at one point in time when I was getting very sick, and ended up just having to leave my corporate job because I couldn't survive it any longer with everything that was going on. And I embarked on, becoming a stay-at-home mom and trying to embrace that. And again, there's some struggles in there with transitioning from high achieving corporate, career that I worked so hard for to now enjoying just being home and with the kids. But I was also in the back, my health was declining. So I spent about 8 years during that time home. But the last 5 years of that, I became progressively ill to the point where I was 90% bedridden and couldn't take care of myself, couldn't really take care of my children. My marriage was also deteriorating at that particular point. I had been married for 19 years and needed to make a decision at one particular point on what I was going to do, because with my health going the direction it was going in, I I knew that I needed to either make a change and take responsibility for my health, and find a diagnosis and find a path to heal and get better. And so I embarked on a 2 year health journey. So this little bit more to the story, but just to keep it high level for the introduction, right?
Yes, no, I
Um,
love it all. Keep going.
yeah, I ended up, I wasn't getting support from my husband, my then husband at the time, and I was so sick, like 90%. I was just laying on the couch and and getting up only to help my small children with things that they needed. So I ended up having to find someone to help me. So I ended up going to my mom and I said, "Can you just help me? I need a few days of rest." Like, I felt like if I could just rest for a few days, maybe I'd be better. 2 days ended up being a week. After a week, I actually was kind of just trying to get back to some sort of capacity to even think for myself because I was so sick and my health had deteriorated so much. So fast forward, I ended up staying with my mom for a bit of time so she could help me and help me raise the children so I could focus on my healing and my health. And I will say, I'm happy to say that my health has been fully recovered. I ended up getting a diagnosis for my autoimmune illness. I've been able to maintain my health. And so I went from 90% bedridden in 2016. And in 2019, I recovered my health. And my goal was to summit a mountain. And I went out and I took an adventure and I climbed a mountain and went to the summit of that mountain. That was kind of my achieving crowning point. Um, it was also the time I was going through a divorce from my then husband, due to the circumstances that surrounded it. And that was 2019. 2020, the pandemic hit. I was still not officially divorced yet. So I didn't have a lot of resources. I wasn't getting any support. And during the separation period, some things happened where my access to our marital resources and assets were limited. So I had $1,000 left in my checking accounts. 2020, March, pandemic hit.
Oh my
thousand
gosh.
dollars left in my checking account for food, for groceries, for rent, for everything. That was it. I had been using it to kind of keep myself and the kids afloat. And yeah, pandemic, and really just had a moment where I had to regroup and look inward and get quiet. And we can talk a little bit about what that looks like and those techniques and strategies that I use. But I sat down and, prayer and meditation and said, I got to get a job. It's time for me to go back to work. I'm healthy. I need to do this. And I had been thinking about going back to work, for a couple of years, but I knew I needed to get to a point where I was healthy and I'd be able to do it in a good way and in a healthy way. And people around me kept saying, oh, well, you're going to have to start over. You've been away from your career for 8 years. Technology's changed. So much has changed. And I was like, no, I'm going back at the level I was. I'm not starting over. I had invested 20 years in my career. I've been through so much. My experience has come with me. It doesn't stay behind. Your experience and education, knowledge, and skills stay with you. And I got a job within a week, went back to the corporate world. And, it really from there created what is a plan for maximizing my life, because having a second lease on life, having gone from that laying on the couch 90% of the time, unable to do anything, unable to even really breathe because I had respiratory as part of my problem, to being able to say, this is my second lease on life and I own it and I'm going to make the best. So I created my passion project, which is the Bliss Life CEO. I work full time in the corporate world. And last year I launched the Bliss Life CEO, which is I am a mindset and success mentor and coach for women going through midlife transitions. And anyone who wants to create more for their life in the second half and really create their bliss life. So that's me and a little bit of my backstory.
Gosh, there is so much there to dive into. So that's an amazing story. Thank you for being willing to share it. There's just really so much there. So I guess some of the things that I was thinking, or that were coming up for me when you were talking, were that early piece where you were working, you were birthing children, taking care of children, taking care of home. And I think that's a situation that so many women find themselves in this day and age, because we want to have careers, we're ambitious, we have passion, we want to have careers, but we also want to have families. And unfortunately, I don't think we have reached equilibrium when it comes to division of childcare and housework. And so, I mean, the studies have shown it over and over that still the majority of that weight is placed on the moms. And so they're working full time and they're doing the majority of the housework and the majority of the childcare. And it's like you said, there's just so much demand. And that doesn't even account for the demand that we're placing on ourselves internally, right? The guilt because we think we're not doing enough or being enough, or we missed something at school, or we forgot something, or whatever, the case may be. I think moms are just famous for mom guilt. So it's a really hard place for women to be. And I think that's why there was a huge dropout in women working during the pandemic, because it just that homeschooling burden kicked in, and the lack of childcare. And there were so many women who just said, I just can't do it anymore. I can't manage balancing all of these things. I was on a tightrope to begin with. And now the tightrope is like shaking back and forth, and I just can't keep my balance.
The tightrope has become a slack line.
Yes. And it's really an unfair position for women to have to be in. And it prevents us from reaching the highest levels of success in our careers, which we should be able to do. And it's really a tough place to be. And I also have to wonder if it can contribute to things like disease, because that amount of stress that women are experiencing is extremely unhealthy. So I think you speak to a lot of women when you talk about, that phase of life that you went through, and, just feeling all of those demands on your time and your energy, and feeling like you weren't really living, like you were just. And I think that's another thing a lot of people feel, that they're not living. They're just checking the boxes, right? They're getting the kids to school, they're
Mm-hmm.
getting to work, they're making the dinner, they're getting the kids to bed, they're doing the laundry, they're check, 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 check. But
Yeah.
where is the passion and play and creativity and fun, So I totally hear you when you talk about that phase.
Yeah, we're surviving, not thriving, and we're meant to thrive, not just
Yes.
survive. And that checking the box is exactly that pattern that we can fall into, where we're just trying to do that minimum, right? It's literally the minimum to get through, because if we're just surviving, that's the minimum.
Yes.
And checking, getting the kids to bed, making sure they have meals, making sure the bare minimum of the house is clean, making sure there's gas in the car, whatever those minimums are, we're not, that's a survival mode. And the survival mode creates nervous system dysfunction and dysregulation, and that leads to disease, like you mentioned, and it leads to all sorts of conditions and anxiety and depression and literal disease within the body, and perpetuates it. And I don't think for a second, or hesitate to think for a second, that part of my autoimmune illness, those are triggered. Mine was a triggered illness, certainly triggered through the dysregulation of my nervous system, because I was just trying to survive doing and being all things. And now I still can do and be all things. I have my hands in so many pots right now because it's me and because I love it. But having certain strategies and knowing and being in tune with ourselves, our mind, body, and soul and spirit, to understand when we're under those pressures and when our nervous system is getting out of whack, or we're not doing the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves, having the awareness of it, then we can implement strategies to improve our health. And like you even mentioned, like nutrition is a big piece too, from a health perspective. When I was doing all those things, the joke was I never made myself a meal. I would cook what my then husband wanted, and I cook meals for the kids. And anybody who's a mom, is most moms will agree that you end up having. I had 3 different plates, 3 different kids. This one like
Yeah,
broccoli,
short
this
order
one
cook.
like peas, this
Yes.
one like short order cook all the way. And I'd be so busy doing meals for them and then having to go to the next thing. I was just like, I'll just eat whatever's left over. Like I wouldn't even make myself a proper meal. I'd serve the kids and serve the then husband, and then start cleaning up. And as I was cleaning up, I just finished eating whatever was left in the kids' plates. I mean, it was survival mode.
Yes.
But I think the awareness is recognizing when we get to that stage, and then having the awareness to make change.
Yes, I totally agree. And also the belief that you are worth it. I'm not sure why women feel that they are not worth it, but I do think that's an epidemic in our society, that they are not worth sitting down and eating a meal. They are not worth self-care, that everything else comes before them and their needs. And so I think that's something that we need to cure in our society. And it's another reason why I started this podcast, because I'm such a firm believer that women need to know their value. Women are so undervalued. They undervalue themselves. And we are so powerful and so strong. And if we can lean into our authenticity and take care of ourselves, we could change this world. So everything you're describing, I think, is really going to resonate so much with my audience, and even moms who are not working, even stay-at-home moms.
Oh
I
yeah,
still
overwhelmed
think
too.
they still battle with this, and there's also this kind of unrealistic vision, I guess, of what a good mom is or a perfect mom is. And when you're a stay-at-home mom, I think there's more pressure on you to do all of these things that are really unnecessary, but there's some sort of societal pressure that you're being a good mom if you do them. Does that resonate with you?
I mean, having been both a corporate mom and being a stay-at-home mom, and now being a corporate mom and a business owner, and I mean, the stay-at-home mom period, there was a lot of pressure just in trying to keep the house to higher standards and be doing more of the. I think there's a shift to, like, you started off when we started talking about that there's a disparity between the workload of that domestic workload between the partners in a household and a marriage. And I think a lot of it does tend to fall to one of the individuals. In most cases, it's if it's male and female marriage, male and female family, it falls to the female, the woman, to do more of that. And I think that when you then shift to what I see myself and a lot of the women I work with, is that when you shift to the woman being a stay-at-home mom, all of a sudden there's this expectation, okay, you're home all day now, so now you can do more of this. And whatever those former things were, like that the husband used to do, the father used to do, now the woman's taking on to kind of almost justify being staying home or being home all day. And then there's the additional pressures of the societal expectations that you mentioned, such as being in the PTA. I mean, that was me. Like, I was getting calls left and right from the school because I was one of the stay-at-home moms at that point in time. Volunteered to school for reading room mom, for kindergarten mom, for the hosting the parties, for running the carnival and the book sale. And then there's all these different things. And I was involved in my church, and because I was viewed as the stay-at-home mom, everyone thought I had all this extra time. Now, keep in mind, I was also at this health crisis stage. And from my own story, I was declining in health. And as time went on, I had to do less and less. But even today, I had to turn something down just yesterday. My daughter's on a sports team, and they're looking for parents to host events and have all the kids, the students and athletes come over and do these team building events. And they asked me to do it, and I flat out had to say, listen, I'm sorry. As much as I want to be involved, my bandwidth is limited right now. And this is a strategy too, and a thing with the self-worth piece that I've learned to be able to understand how much extra time do I have, and what do I allocate things to. And I have to allocate those things towards the things that fuel me up and fill me up and make me a better person and make me a better mom and make me a more productive entrepreneur and a better coach and a better mentor and a better employee and a better spouse and partner, and all these things that fill me up versus the things that drain me. And when I have an expectation that, hey, your daughter's on this team, you need to do this, I had tremendous guilt saying, no, I can't volunteer to do this. I'm like, as much as I want to, I can't right now. My bandwidth is limited. But then taking this interview with you, obviously not the same time commitment, but this is what fuels me up, because I know deep down inside that my passion and my purpose is to speak my truth, to speak my authenticity, to share my story, to help others. So this fills me up versus something that drains me and takes time away from me. So yeah, there's huge pressures, and it's the self-confidence. One other thing I just want to touch on that you said is, if you would have asked me in 2016 when I was laying on the couch really, really sick, what is the real, what is the real problem and consequence aside from the medical diagnosis? What's the real problem and consequence? I would have never said to you, oh, I have a self-confidence, a self-esteem, a self-worth issue. I would have just been, woe is me. I'm not getting any support, and my then husband's not helping me. He won't take me to the doctors. He won't help me find a new doctor. There's that narrative and that story that, all these things, doctors aren't helping me. I would have never said I had a self-worth issue. It wasn't until I was able to go through, I went through a process which I actually use in my business, the Bliss Life CEO. It's the Bliss Life method. It's a proven process. The same process I went through to identify what was going on in my life and where I needed to go and what was blocking me and stopping me from living this better, fuller life. And there's a module early on, and it was when I went through and understood what was really blocking me, and I realized it was a self-worth and a self-confidence issue. I would never have said it, and even so, when I go through I designed that at that time in about 2018, 19. And even as my life has gone through different transitions, when I find myself in that moment of stuck, I'm like, okay, I'm stuck. I go back through that exercise, that module, piece of the program, and I work through those exercises, and I do an assessment of where my self-worth and my self-value, because I know for me, that's where I fall short. But I didn't recognize that for the first 45 years of my life.
Yes. And I think
when we work on our self-esteem, we can really make change.
Yeah. And I think you're not alone. I think a lot of women wouldn't recognize that they have a self-esteem or self-worth problem. And I also think they take a lot of their self-worth and self-esteem from being the caregiver, which is what is probably driving some of that behavior of constantly taking care of other people. If I do a great job of taking care of my kids, I am worthy. If I do a great job at work, I am worthy. If I am a good spouse, I am worthy. Instead of really taking the time to really look inward and to know I am worthy. Full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Actually, exclamation mark. Done. I am worthy. I don't need to be taking care of anyone else to prove that. And in fact, I actually just don't even need to prove it. I just need to know it and feel it. And that is, that's a huge piece that I think we need to work on in our society. You are not worthy because of what you can give to someone else. You are worthy because you are a soul and you are here.
Inherently worthy. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I love that you
absolutely.
said that. Mm-hmm.
And the other piece that I wanted to pull out of what you said is, and I resonate with this so much, is the where you choose to put your energy. Because, how many moms or adults really walking around are like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired, right? Don't you always hear that? I'm like, I've had my 5th coffee today, or I'm drinking my Red Bull, or, whatever the case may be. Everybody's so tired. And we are really busy, and there are a lot of demands on our lives. And, a lot of people, their nutrition's not the best. And there are like physical, reasons why we could be tired. But what I have found in my life is that is only part of the picture. The other part of the picture is how much time am I spending in my day dedicated to things that do not fill me up, dedicated to things that are chores, that are have tos, that are I shoulds, versus the things that I'm really passionate about. Because somehow when I can feel so tired, but when I get on an interview for this podcast, I am just like filled with energy. I am excited. I'm like, let's go. Let's have this conversation. Let's change lives. Like, I'm a nurse. So I work, that's my day job is as a nurse. And I decided to start this podcast, and it's a decent amount of work, getting a podcast up and running. And I do a newsletter each week along with the podcast. And, it's a decent amount of work, but it's not work. It's passion, it's joy, it fills me up. And it doesn't, my husband was joking the other day. He's like, are you becoming a workaholic? Which is something no one would have ever called me ever in my life. And I'm like, but it's not work. Like, I am working, but I'm having so much fun doing it that the energy just comes, it's just there. And for years and years and years, I was checking the boxes, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was really at a loss as to what my purpose was and what my passion was. In fact, I used to say, I do a lot of spiritual work. I'm also a yoga teacher, and, a lot of reading and meditation and breath work and journaling and all the, unraveling the subconscious beliefs and all that stuff. And I would say, I don't know. I don't think I have a purpose. I think God missed it when he sent me down. He didn't set me down with one. And I was so tired and drained all the time. And then when I realized what it was and started allowing myself the freedom to work into it, I have so much more energy than I've ever had in my adult life. So I really think that when we're on purpose, we just feel so much better mentally and physically, and our energy comes up. And but we have to, like you said, consciously make that choice to turn towards the things that give us purpose and passion, and away from the things that drain us. And that's really hard. There's a lot of guilt that can come with that until you get good at it. Once you get good at it, I think it's like a muscle, and it becomes easier.
Yeah. It's we think about, we all know that we need nutrition for our bodies to perform, right? We know that we need nutrition, we need sleep, we need these fundamental things, right? We need clean air. We just need these fundamental things with nutrition for our bodies to survive. But what we don't connect the dots on very often is what we need for our spirit and the spirit, soul, that passion, the purpose, the enthusiasm we have for life. And when we are living in our passion and our purpose, and there's a path to find that, right? Because so many women, either they thought that I work with, because I deal with passion and purpose all the time. My business is a passion built business. Same with your podcast. It seems as though we either have that nudge that's been in the back of our minds, like all along. That was me. That was my story that I always knew in the back of my mind. I didn't know how it would come together, but I had this pull, this knowing that this is what I wanted to do. And then for other women like yourself, like sometimes you got to find what that is. And that searching and seeking process can be overwhelming and frustrating when you keep searching and searching for it and not finding it until you find it. But then you realize that it's nutrition for your soul and spirit. It's like the nutrition that we have to put in our bodies for our physical being to survive, for our soul and spiritual, the inner part of us to survive. We need that nutrition, which is that feeding of our passion and purpose, doing the things we love, doing the things that bring us joy and pleasure and happiness and a sense of meaning and purpose. Because without that, we kind of function almost like as a shell, right? That's how I felt. I felt like a shell when I wasn't living in my passion and purpose. I was highly successful, by all means, looking out from the outside in, highly successful. But in the inside, I felt like, what am I doing? Like, I was so drained. I just kept like giving and giving and giving and pouring from that empty cup and not realizing that I needed to give myself permission to pursue my passion and purpose. I need to give myself permission to sleep and allow myself the proper rest I need. And I need to give myself permission to say no when it's time to say no to other things and other projects. And the biggest lesson for me in the past couple years has been to just ask for help and just to say, can someone else please take the garbage out to the end of the street today?
Yes.
I walked into my kitchen the other day and there was a sink full of dishes, and normally I'm just the one that just does it. And I just said, I don't have the capacity right now. I can physically push myself through this, but I don't have the emotional fortitude to do a whole sink of dishes that I did not create. Like, somebody else in this household needs to step up and do them. But it's just like I laugh when I say that, but so often, to your point, is like, as women, we just find ourselves in the repetitive process of just doing and doing and taking so much on and care, and it becomes a burden. And asking for help and allowing ourselves to give our bodies and our souls and our minds the rest and nutrition that it needs to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that, I've always worked part-time as a nurse. So my husband always worked crazy hours and I worked part-time. And so I did do a lot more around the house because I had a lot more time to do it around the house. But now I've started the podcast and that's, taking more of my time, and I'm really enlisting my kids. My kids are now almost 15 and almost 10. They both have birthdays coming up. And I'm like, you know what, guys? You are old enough. Like, let's get going. Let's get some vacuuming and laundry and dishes. And I think that, there's a lot more help accessible to us than we think there is. But once we really just start asking for that help and deciding that these people around me are actually capable, I'm not the only capable one in this house, it becomes a lot easier. You'll be amazed at how much help you can get. And then I start thinking, well, why didn't I do this sooner? What was I doing? Why was I doing all this unnecessary work when I have these, other people who can help? So enlisting kids is a great option for moms looking for help.
Yeah, enlisting kids. And since my divorce, I have my new relationship, my new partner is just amazing. And it's been the one that's actually taught me that lesson very early on in the relationship. He's like, you don't ever ask for help. I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I just don't ask, because I had always thought my history was I was always the one. I was the doer, the achiever. I would just take on the burden. He's like, ask me for help. I'm like, well, really? Like, yeah. And it's amazing. Like, when you just, all I gotta do is ask for help. He's like, I'll help you. Just ask me for help. And it's just simple things. And he's the one that ended up doing that sink full of dishes the other day. He's just like, just did them, you know? And I was just like, oh, this is easy. This is very nice when you have that partnership. But again, some of that for me personally, and I think maybe some women can relate, again, ties back to that self-worthiness and the self-esteem and self-confidence, and that understanding and knowing that we are worthy of being able to ask somebody for help, and especially our partner and our loved one. And I think, not true for all relationships. I hope most marriages are more equal. Mine wasn't at the time. My former marriage wasn't at the time. So I had gotten into that run of never being able to ask for help because I never received it. So it's that shift of holding myself accountable to understand that I am worthy and inherently worthy of asking and receiving help when I need it.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'm so glad that you are in a relationship like that now. That's amazing. The other part that I wanted to tie back to was, we were talking about, passion and purpose. It was that, so sometimes I think our passion and our purpose doesn't always align with cultural expectations. So I'm thinking of myself and how I started this podcast. And for so long, I didn't know what my passion or my purpose was. And I was looking in all the wrong places, because I was looking for things that that already exist, that are tried and true, that create a paycheck, that are very secure. And that there's just nothing out there that exists for me that I am passionate about that falls into those categories. And I wasn't kind of looking outside the box and giving myself the freedom to say, even if it doesn't make a paycheck, and even if it's a little unusual, even if your parents won't understand why you're doing this, even, I can still do it. I can create what I am passionate about versus it's already created and I step into it. And that's permission giving too. I'm giving myself permission to be a little countercultural and step into something that I create myself. And once I did that, I was able to look back and see all of the breadcrumbs along the trail that had led me to that place. And I think a lot of women will find that if they give themselves the permission, then when they look back, they're like, oh, actually, my journey all along was leading me right here. I just had to say yes to it. And that is part of that self-worth that we were talking about, and that believing you're inherently worthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that with passion and purpose, it's such a struggle for a lot of women to embrace their path, to uncover what it is. And there's a lot of it is quieting down, right? Quieting down and being able to really tune into those things that bring us joy and pleasure, and what we find meaning in. And the societal expectation, I think that I resonate with what you said, because part of my journey too was that I've had multiple businesses in my life. While I was working in my 20s, I owned 3 food distributorship franchises in the city of Chicago, and I started those up and ran them, and they were highly successful. They were over $1 million year revenue businesses, and I was also working and climbing the corporate career ladder. I think to your point is, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and have my own business, but I pursued finding something that in my mind, from my business mind, made sense. On paper, this is going to make money. This is going to be a good thing to do. And I went the franchise route. And one of the things I struggle with the most, maybe you'll resonate with this too a little bit, because I get the sense that you're more of a creative, like you get that creative part that you need to create. Maybe a manifest generator if you're into human design and all, but like you need to create. And I didn't, and I am too. I need to create. And I didn't realize when I was in my business, the franchise business, I was completely restricted. When you're in a franchise, there's a lot of restrictions. And that business, within 6 months of getting it up and running, I was no longer the entrepreneur or the inventor, the business owner. I was more of became the retail store clerk and the accounts payable and the delivery person. And I wasn't creating. I was just stuck in more doing, and it was draining on me, because as we talked about, it's like that, all that demand and pressure on us. So here I am trying to fulfill my passion and my purpose and be an entrepreneur and start this business. I got a successful business by all views looking in, but I was just, oh my gosh, more work to do. I got to balance books. I got to do this. I got to pay the bills. And, versus now my business, there's still bills to pay. There's still books to balance. There's still a lot of things to do, but because it's aligned with my passion, I do it with energy and positivity and love. When I pay my bills and I balance my books, I'm like, this is my passion business. So I know that I need to be creating, and I know I need to have an alignment for it in order for me to feel good about it. And I feel much better in my business today because it's in complete alignment with what fuels me and gives my soul and spirit nutrition to keep it healthy, versus the one that was just draining me.
Yeah, I absolutely resonate with that. And it's funny because I never thought I was a creative person because I can't draw, I cannot paint, I don't play an
Same.
instrument, all these things that you would typically think of as being creative. And it
Yep.
took me into my 40s to recognize that creativity comes in many, many forms. And
Yes.
anytime that you make something that did not exist prior to you making it, you are being creative. And
Yes.
so I have found that I actually am a creative. I just didn't know it because I was defining creativity in a different way. And I think that's probably true of a lot of people out there, that they're not living into their creativity because they're not even recognizing it as creativity.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
let's get into what you do. So how do you coach your clients? Like how do you help them live into their passion and purpose? And when they come to you, how do they come to you? Like, are they kind of like at the end of their rope, or like what motivates people to seek you out and work with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. The one word that I would say that is the common thread that I hear the most is stuck. I'm just stuck. Yeah, I have, I have so many good things in my life that I should be grateful for. And they say I am grateful for them. I'm just stuck. Like, I want more. And most people around them just don't get why they need more. They're like, well, you have so many great things. What do you mean you want more? What more do you want? And it almost becomes like this antagonistic thing, and they just feel stuck. And they need that help and that support to, understand why they feel stuck. So there's a lot in that and around that, a lot of work that we do within the first few modules, which is really understanding from a self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem perspective. What is it where do we view ourselves on that spectrum? And there's some work we do that kind of sets the temperature, the baseline for where we are on that self-esteem and self-worth um, um, grid. And then really stepping into okay, well, what fuels you up? Where do you find your like, what do you enjoy doing? Where do you get your energy from? And we do some work around that. And then we talk about what's stopping us. What are those limiting beliefs? And limiting beliefs is one of those buzzwords that's out there, right? But the limiting beliefs really breaks down, and it goes back to the self-worth and self-confidence and self-esteem, because the only thing that we're limited by is what we limit for ourselves. And a lot of what limiting beliefs really ends up being is those subconscious beliefs that they're subconscious in our minds, and we don't really, because if they're conscious, we go, okay, this is what's blocking us. Okay, I don't have the money to start the X project. That can be fixed. That's a tangible, we're aware of it, we can fix it, we can work through it. But the subconscious ones are, why am I stopping myself from doing this? And a lot of it ties back to the confidence and self-worthiness spectrum. For me, personally, sharing my piece of it is I didn't feel worthy of demanding and setting my expectations for what I really wanted in life, both from a marriage perspective, from how I live my life, what I'm doing, the work, the way I'm moving about in the world, everything. And when we walk through these different pieces, everything kind of ties back to where we are from self-love and self-confidence, self-esteem. And again, it's if no one comes to me and says, I need to work on my self-esteem, I need to work on my self-confidence. No woman yet has raised their hand and said, I need more self-love, right? We just say, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. Why do I not feel happier? In fact, I don't know when this episode's going to air. When is this going to air, by the way, Katie? Do you know?
Probably a couple of weeks from now. Usually it takes a couple of weeks to edit and get it out there.
Yeah, I asked because I'm hosting, so the timing might work out, but there will be replays. I'm doing a Be Happier Now Summit.
Oh,
and
tell me what it is, and I'll make sure it gets out before that.
Okay, so because of the work I do, and the women saying, I'm just not happier. Like, I wish I could just be happier. Like, I wish I could. And then even, you being a nurse and being in medicine, there's women that are like, I've gone to the doctor, I'm taking antidepressants, I'm taking anti-anxiety medications. I thought those would make me happier. Why am I not happier? I've got a great marriage. I got great kids. I got these great things. Why am I not happier? So that's a lot of the individual work we do in the Bliss Life CEOs. I have this, the Bliss Life method, which walks through a program. There's one-on-one coaching, and we really go through and uncover what it is and find those passions and purpose. And then we create a plan, and we work together to make life-changing plans that move you beyond just like the everyday and really help women step into their full. It's kind of the Bliss life, right? It's like becoming the CEO of your own Bliss life, is taking charge of responsibility. And so much of that ties back to the work we do. But in the I wish I felt happier piece. So I'm hosting a summit, begins on Monday, which is August 21st. But you can join at any time. So depending upon when it goes out, you can always join and get access to the interviews. I've interviewed 21 experts from around the world. It's a global summit that speak on the subject of happiness. And it's called Be Happier Now, Reconnect with Your Soul, Passions, and Purpose, Unlock Your Inner Power, and understand the wellness connection to create a life of bliss beyond your wildest dreams. And 21 experts every day beginning August 21st, one episode, one interview is going to drop via email. They can go to BeHappierNowSummit.com to register, and it's free. And you'll get these daily interviews for 21 days. And we have TEDx speakers. I've got psychologists. I've got many top-selling authors, some other podcast hosts, and there's really some amazing interviews that have been done and some amazing content. And again, it's all designed to bring together different experts and different viewpoints, different perspectives, and different modalities for being happy, because one size doesn't fit all, right? Like that's the other problem. And that's the other problem that people face is like, why can't I be happier? Oh, I go on a vacation for a week and I feel great. And then I get back into the same hamster wheel of life. Oh, well, I'll be happy when I'm retired. You know, I asked women, one of the entry covers conversations is, what does bliss look like to you? What is your bliss life? What a lot of times it's, well, I don't know. It's like, I think about like when I'm on a tropical vacation and I'm like, well, when do you think you'll have your bliss life? How does that show up and appear for your life for you? What do you see and when does that occur? And so often they say, oh, when I'm retired. Well, I mean, retirement these days, unless somebody's inherently wealthy, in retirement these days, we work until we're 65, 67, 70.
Yeah.
Well, if you're sitting at age 51 like me, that is a long ways away. I am not waiting 15, 20 years for happiness and bliss and to live my passions and purpose. So the goal of the Be Happier Now Summit is to bring these different modalities in. My goal is that those participating in the summit, by hearing 21 different speakers and having access to different strategies that they can implement in their life, will take away just one or two things that they can do and implement to be happier now today.
Yeah.
Not in January, that week vacation, when we go to an all-inclusive resort and sit there and and do nothing but eat and soak in the sun, and not wait 20 years until retirement, but to now, to be happier now in today's life.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. I'm going to try to get my episodes drop on Friday. So I'm going to try to make you my next episode and trying to get this edited and out, because I would love all the listeners to be able to have access to that. They'll miss the first 5 days. So can they go back and re-listen, or it just comes out like that day? There's nowhere for them to go back and re-listen.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a VIP option, which will give them access to all of the replays if they chose to do so. So that's available to them. But if it drops on Friday, they'll still get the remainder of the episodes.
Episodes. Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, I love that so much. And I think you're so right. There are so many, it looks different for everyone. And people, will often talk to me about what do you do? And I will tell them what I do, but I always preface it by saying, this is what I do because this is what works for me. And it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And the most important thing you can do is keep turning towards the things that you are pulled towards. And even if that's, a 1% shift every day of turning towards things that light up your soul, you're going to find your way. This is great that they have access to all these experts and all these different ideas, because sometimes I think, we go so long without turning towards those things that light up our soul that we just don't even know what they are anymore. And so to have people giving suggestions and giving people the permission to play and say, I'm going to try this. Let's see what happens. Maybe it'll work for me and maybe it won't. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, then I'll try the next thing and I'll keep trying until I find, what feels authentic to me.
Yeah. And I think that's the important thing too, when we're, one size doesn't fit all for happiness. One size doesn't fit all for bliss. One size doesn't fit all for most things in life, right? And that's a lot of the work, when you ask about the work I do inside the Bliss Life CEO, is that it's not a one size fits all. It's not, here's what you do to be happy, right? Because happiness and fulfillment and passion and purpose is different for everybody. And so really the Bliss Life CEO and the Bliss Life Method is a container in which we work together and able to, on a one-on-one basis, find out for that particular transformation looks like and what they strive for.
What can't hear
Happiness to
you.
them might be, oh,
You're back. You're back. I lost you for a second.
okay,
There.
thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah,
Okay.
so happiness and that transformation at the other side looks different.
Yeah.
Looks different for every single person. So it's a customized approach to really understand where, what is that happiness and bliss? And then how do we create a plan around that? And what are those struggles? And how do we implement different strategies? And it's different for every single person. So it's that personalized approach that helps hand walk somebody through it.
Yes. Yes. That's amazing. And do you find that even though people are coming to you and they're saying, I'm stuck, and they're not really realizing what's going on, and then you guys work together and you do make changes that are visible on the outside, do you find that a lot of their improvement in their level of happiness and joy is really coming from the inside, like from the transformation that's occurring on the inside versus what the stuff that we can actually see on the outside?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so one of my, I'm like giggling already because like one of my favorite components of the work we do, and it's around self-love. And I like to vision it as it's like a rose or a peony, flower that's a beautiful little bud, right? And just begins to just bloom, and those petals open up and they just get bigger and bigger. And just the flower itself, the individual gets more beautiful as they go through this unfolding, this opening, this growing and blooming process. So I like to think of it as a blooming process, because when we increase our self-love, we see ourselves, that the transformation is, it manifests itself in being able to have more joy in the day and have more peace in the day. And the transformation within just makes everything around better. It's like when we're stuck and our nervous system is dysregulated and we feel like, oh gosh, there's another day in the hamster wheel. What happens is not only we feel in that stuck thing, but we're short. We're short with the people we love. We're rushing through things. We're not enjoying the moment. We become forgetful because we're rushing. We feel overwhelmed. Then all of a sudden we're, in the middle of having to drive kids to school or go to the grocery store. And now we're on empty on gas. Now I got to stop at the gas station. I get gas. And then overwhelm, all of that stuff begins to just spiral, right? And the transformation on the other side is really living in this calm peace. And I I get almost dumbfounded for words, the sense of calm and peace that I feel on the other side and that women feel on the other side. Like, it feels like my to-do list and my expectations got so much less, but like I'm still doing all the same things, but because I'm doing them in alignment and I'm doing them in a framework of self-confidence and self-love, and I just feel so much more peace. And I almost feel like what I hear is I almost feel like time has expanded to allow me to accomplish more. And I still have the same 24 hours today as I did then, but I'm getting more done and I'm doing it in a peaceful way. I'm no longer overwhelmed with having to get gas in the last minute or running out of an ingredient for dinner, or I'm no longer rushing through, like half listening to what my child is saying to me while I'm busy doing something else. It's being more present in life. And yeah, that is just a different way of living. It's living in bliss versus living in nervous system dysregulation and panic and overwhelm and stuck all the time. And then it's being
Yes.
able to feel fulfilled and have the resources emotionally, mentally, and physically to be able to do the things we love.
Yes. Oh my God. Every word, every word. I just, it's beautiful. And it's so true. It's so true. I I had my own health journey. I have chronic migraines. So I started getting migraines after the birth of my first child, but they were just like once a month with my cycle, and they were very easily treated, and I really didn't think much of them at all. And then after the birth of my second child, they just went completely out of control. I was seeing every doctor under the sun, every treatment under the sun. I was nearly bedridden. My parents were here all the time helping take care of my children. It was really hard. I actually thought about ending my life at a point. And it forced me to go inward. There was really no other choice than to go inward, because everything outside of me was so painful physically and emotionally that it was the only thing I knew to do in order to survive that pain. And it started me on the journey of mindfulness and present moment awareness and meditation and all of those things, which is really what you're talking about, and this being really, really present, and how time does expand. And you feel such a sense of inner peace and calm, no matter what is going on around you. I teach meditation, and I always say it's like you're in the eye of the storm. So all that stuff that was swirling around you before is still swirling around you, but you're not in the storm. You're in the peaceful center of the storm, and you're just watching it. You're just observing it. And it's not impacting you. It's not impacting your emotional well-being. It's not dysregulating your nervous system. It's just, this is happening. Okay. And it's really hard to explain unless you experience it yourself, but it's such a gift. So if you are, you're training women to do this, you are giving them such a beautiful gift that is so transformational for the rest of their lives. No matter what else happens in their lives, they will have this depth that they can go to that is really life-saving. So
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And as mothers, as for those of us who are parents, when we become more calm and present, it's amazing how our children become more calm and present.
Yes.
So the outcome is not just a gift for ourselves, but it's a gift for everybody around us, because everybody, like the whole pressure relaxes a bit, and everybody becomes a little bit more relaxed and joyous and less stressed. It's health for everybody.
Yes, it 100% is. I am a very firm believer in the impact of energy, and that we're all energy, and our energy radiates out from us and impacts those people around us. And when your energy is a calm, centered, grounded energy, people around you are going to rise to that, and it's going to impact them. So it makes your life better on so many levels. And then you're teaching your kids how to be present and grounded. And I don't know why we humans have to suffer to learn. I'm not sure why that design was put in place, but I always hope that I'm teaching my kids the skills that they need to hopefully not have to suffer to learn the skills. Who knows? But I do think, we deposit so much in the reservoir of our children as they're with us and growing up. And maybe it's not always apparent that they've learned the lessons when they're young, but I think it's there. And
absolutely,
they'll take it with them, and they'll remember it and lean on it when they need to. So it's such a beautiful gift to give your children.
Yeah, that's how we create generational legacy too, and from a wellness perspective with our children. It's an example I like to give in this is, if a child sees their parents, their caregivers after a very stressful day, as soon as that day's end, if they're turning to substances, getting a drink, getting this, substances, or sitting on the couch and just watching TV to chill out, that's what they're gonna liken. Okay, I've had a stressful day. This is how I handle a stressful day. Versus if they see their parents modeling productive behaviors, like, I had a stressful day, I'm going for a run, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to sit and meditate, I'm going to journal, I'm going to read, I'm going to meditate. they see the parents modeling those positive behaviors, then we create generational legacy within our children to model that type of behavior when they become, even in childhood. My kids will go, they'll go in their room and they say they need to meditate, or they say they have a headache. They say, I need mommy woo woo. And mommy woo woo is where I go in, I sit down, I sit cross-legged, and they put their head in my lap, and I give them the pressure point massage to help alleviate some of their headache. And they know that is mommy woo woo versus going to the cabinet for the ibuprofen,
Right,
so it's like
right.
there's ways in which we model, we create that generational change for our children.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And then, that ripples out. So, this is the work that you're passionate about, and obviously I am too, but not everyone is going to be passionate about this work. They might go out and do all the other things that also need to be accomplished in this life. But if they have these skills and they're taking that into these other arenas, we are changing how those arenas function with more compassion and love and empathy and understanding and creating a better world. So it's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to be mindful of your time? Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we end?
Yeah, I would just share that again, the Be Happier Now Summit next week. It's BeHappierNowSummit.com to register for the free summit. And I would just say, to anyone listening, that there's a decision that we make at some point in our life, and that is either to continue to perpetuate the status quo and continue to run on that hamster wheel, or we make the decision to make change. And it's that pivot point in life that is our choice. It's each and every one of us, and it's within us to make that decision, but it is a decision to make. And once you make the decision to pivot, so much beauty and bounty can open up for you.
Yes.
That's where we create change in that decision.
Absolutely. I firmly believe in that. And I guess I lied. One last question for you. I like to ask all of my guests, what is your practice? What do you do on a regular basis to keep you aligned?
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for asking that. So meditation, I'm big on meditation. Every night before bed is when I practice my meditation. So I do that. And then also for me is in the first thing in the morning, and my mindfulness practice is I love going outside, deep breath of fresh air, no matter what season. And I live in Chicago, so we get all the seasons. Yeah. But I love going outside first thing in the morning, even if I work from home. So even if I'm going to be just working from home and, day after day, sometimes you wouldn't even go outside perhaps, but I go outside first thing every morning, fill my lungs with a bunch of deep breath of fresh air. When I look up towards the sky, for me, I love the sky and the clouds, and I just appreciate, and I just give thanks and the mindfulness in the present moment. I sip of my coffee. I love coffee. Take my coffee out there and just have a moment. And it literally takes 60 seconds before work. So if it's 7:58, I'll go outside for 1 minute and just be present and feel the wind on my skin, hear the birds chirping, watch the clouds move, and just be grateful for the day. Be grateful that I feel good. Be grateful I was able to get up off that couch and have a productive day. And it just sets the stage for me to have a really great day and handle the stressors that come throughout the day. And then in the evening, when I do my meditation practice before bed, it kind of closes out the day and prepares my mind, body, and soul for a good night's restorative sleep.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you for taking time to be here on your vacation. And thank you for what you do. And I will put all of your information in the show notes so people can, register for the summit. Do you have a website?
Thank you.
You have a website for your
No,
company?
I don't. Okay. But you can find me on social at Bliss Life CEO.
Okay. All right. I'll put all that in there. And I just thank you again for what you do and for being here and sharing your wisdom with the audience. Yes.
Thank you, Katie.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your vacation.
Yeah, you too. Have a great weekend, and we will talk hopefully again soon. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.